Were those 4 on the entire house or 4 on a level? Do you remember?
Well, it was because there was a bedroom in the basement that was all floors, and there was a loft bedroom. So, I mean, that was on every floor that we ran wire to hook up.
So you said when you had this conversation with Linda, it was a few days after the fire?
Yeah.
And can you describe what her demeanor was when you were having this conversation with her?
She was, appeared to be upset, but she was able to talk with us until I asked her about the fire alarms, and then she got up and left the room.
Did you then try to ask her any more questions?
We couldn't because she left the room, and we didn't want to upset her anymore at that time.
So you said you had assisted in helping Todd build that home. What did you assist with?
I helped him. I was there the first day when we framed the first wall, in the basement. I mean, so I started the first day, but I helped him with windows. I helped him with drywall. I helped him with wiring. Help dig a trench. Whatever I could do when I was in town to help him.
Do you have a background in construction?
No.
And so why were you helping? What was your knowledge of construction?
Well, over the years, I've owned some houses and I've done it, and I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I just like to do that kind of work, and I like, he's my brother. I wanted to help him. I've helped mostly family and friends. I don't do it for a living or anything, but I do enjoy working with my hands. Had
Todd remodeled and built things before?
Oh, yeah, he was pretty good at it. He did jobs. I mean, I know not just for friends and family, but for other people. I mean, and so he did. He was a much better carpenter than I was.
Do you know if those smoke detectors were inspected after you helped?
I don't know that. I know he said, the inspection was coming.
I can move on, Your Honor. Yep. Were you aware that Todd and Linda had financial issues?
I knew they weren't living the high life, yeah.
Were you aware of any money that they had borrowed from family?
Yeah, I had loaned Todd some money.
Did you ever see Todd and Linda fight before?
Not fight, but he would get, to the point where he was a little annoyed with her, like, Linda, we're busy here, we're working on the house, and she'd come in and start rattling off about something, and we're trying to put up a 10-foot sheet of drywall. It was, not convenient. So he didn't yell at her like, get out of here. He's just like, we're busy right now.
So did you ever see him have any physical violence between them?
No.
Did Linda appear afraid of Todd?
No.
Were you involved? You talked about remodeling with Todd. Were you involved in remodeling a house with Todd? I believe that was it your father?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that house?
Yeah, it was in our family. It was the little house. We call it the Little Yellow House. It was the next door to where we lived and grew up, and it was a rental. My dad always rented it, kept it rental, and so when my dad had a stroke and was still in rehab, Todd said, let's fix up the Little Yellow House, and I'll move my family in there, and then I can keep an eye on Dad and help him out. And so we started, it was vacant, had been vacant for a while, so it was pretty rough shape. And so we started with roofing and drywall and so forth.
Yeah, and were you aware if Todd and Linda had ever moved into that house?
No.
And did your father still live in the big house?
Yes. And
did something happen with your father?
Yeah, he passed away, and so we stopped the work for the most part. But I think Todd was thinking, we got this far, we're almost done. But he decided, he wanted to see if he could buy my dad's house from my sisters and I.
Would that have been the little house or the big house?
The big house, I'm sorry.
So
it would have been all of them. It would have been the whole.
The entire property?
Right, the property.
And so did Todd and Linda move into the big house?
Yes.
And they were living in there?
Yes.
And at that time, were you then still working on the remodeling of the little house?
No, I was not involved, and at that time.
Okay. And you still had an interest in the property?
No.
A financial interest?
No, I did not.
Okay. And that was your father's property?
That was my dad's property.
And do you recall how much work you guys did on that house?
We did a lot of work, and then, and at that time I was just, not too far out of college, so I mean, we were, it wasn't like we were buying the best of the best, but yeah, the roofing and stuff, we were kind of putting our nickels together to do stuff,
Did you have to do drywall and?
Yeah.
So
the roof leaked, so the first thing we had to do was get the roof fixed, and so we redid the roof, and then we started, with the drywall.
And so, how much did you have to tear out?
Well, it was a mess. I mean, it had been vacant for a while, and so it was quite a bit. I mean, we didn't have a dumpster yet, but we had tarp, and we were throwing stuff out, and with the insulation and old drywall and stuff like that.
And so you had to put in all new drywall?
Yeah.
All new flooring?
Yeah, I didn't do any of the flooring, but I did help them with a lot of the drywall.
And Todd and Linda were living in the big house at that time?
No, at the time when we were working on the yellow house, no one lived. My dad wasn't even there yet. He was still in rehab, I think, after his stroke, and so he was coming home, and we were trying to hurry up and get the little house built, or livable. So I don't know where they were living at that time.
At some point, did they move into the big house?
Yes, they did.
And you still had your father's estate still owned the little house?
Yes.
And did something happen to that house?
Yeah, it burned down months later.
And was it just the little house?
Yeah.
And at that time, were Todd and Linda living in the big house?
Yeah, they were.
And you had said most of the work was already done at that point?
Yeah.
Was Todd a physically fit guy?
Very athletic, and still played softball, and did, he was basketball. He was still very much into sports and very much, active. He worked for a living with his hands, so he was very physically fit.
Have you had any other conversations with Linda then, other than just the few days after the fire?
No.
Had you been to Todd and Linda's house before it burned down?
Yes.
Several times?
Oh, yeah.
Were you there close to the time that it did burn?
We were there at Christmas. We went over there for Christmas several weeks before.
And can you talk about whether there was a trail on the, if I'm looking at the house, it would have been to the north side, on the right-hand side. Was there a trail or a path going down?
No. When they were building the house, and it was all dirt, and we could drive around the side, but it was a pretty good hill, and there was clay in that soil. So if it were wet or rainy, you wouldn't want to go down there because you need a four-wheel drive to get back up. But after they got the house pretty much built and living there, he had graded it, and it was yard, essentially grass.
It was yard at that time?
Yeah.
So used during construction, but then, to your knowledge,
after that, yeah.
Once the house was done.
Yeah, there was no trail or
And it was all graded and lawn. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Stermer. When you talked to Linda Stermer, this was within 48 hours of her losing her husband, correct?
How about that, yeah.
You losing your brother, yes?
Yes.
And the family, including you and Linda and Todd's sons, were there at her friend's
Yes.
house. Would that be Kate Swift?
I believe that was her name, yeah.
Your mom was there.
Yes.
Obviously, Linda Stermer was emotionally distraught,
Yes.
as were you, having lost your brother 48 hours ago,
Yeah, we had a lot of questions.
as were her sons. Yes? Everybody was emotionally distraught. It was a very emotional time given the loss.
Yes.
She told you that she was in the basement and she heard Todd scream and she ran up the stairs, correct?
Yes.
And after that, when she got emotionally distraught, she went somewhere into another room and no more conversations about the fire.
Yes.
And no more conversations since then with Linda.
No.
Fair?
Fair.
Okay. These smoke alarms, you said, let me make sure if I get this right, you would help Todd build the house. It took a lot of years, probably 7 or 8 years.
I helped with different phases of the house, yeah.
Were you out of state?
I lived in the Upper Peninsula.
Okay. So you would come down on occasion, and if you had time, you would help Todd on the weekends?
Yes.